Hey everyone, today I wanted to talk about culture versus Christianity. So, a lot of times we view our culture and what we've been raised in, especially if we've been raised as Christians in a specific culture, we view that as Christian culture. And like that is the way to behave as a Christian. And one thing that I'm recently learning and wanting to share with you is that when we go into a different area within our state or country or the world, we're going to face different kinds of people with all different kinds of backgrounds. And one thing I'm learning is that our way is not always necessarily the way to do it. Excuse me. Um, so I'm going to give an example of that. So let's talk about honor. Um, so in Philippians chapter 2, verse 3, it says, "Do nothing from selfishness or empty conceit, but with humility of mind, regard one another as more important than yourselves." So it's talking about do not be selfish, don't do anything from selfish ambition, and regarding everyone as better than ourselves. Then another one is Romans 12, chapter 12, verse 10. "Be devoted to one another in brotherly love, give preference to one another in honor." And then another one that I want to read real quick is in Exodus chapter 20. That's right, one of the 10 Commandments. It says, "Honor your father and your mother, that your days may be prolonged in the land which the Lord your God gives you." And there's many other verses in the Bible where it talks about honoring others and honoring God. Excuse me. But today specifically I'm going to talk about how we view honoring. So the Bible talks about honor and respect, but each individual culture views that differently. And so, for example, here in the United States, we have Western culture, which is what I'm from. I grew up in Utah and I lived in Oregon for a few years. Most of my culture, my background, where my parents and ancestors are from, is from those states. It's from the northwestern, just the western states. So that's my culture that I'm from. So there's a difference between that culture and then the southern culture or even the eastern culture. And then particularly the deep south where, so for example, in the south what I learned was they are so adamant about saying yes sir and yes ma'am and having these formalities and saying Mr. and Mrs. in front of people's names. And so when I moved down to a southern state for a little while, I was in the kids class at church. And I'm from the West. We are on a first name basis, and so um, calling a teacher at church. Now school's different. Out west, we use Mister and Mrs. and that too, but like at church, talking to one of the leaders in kids class, using first name, it's no big deal. Well, like they were so adamant down south that like you have to use Mr. Johns or Mrs. Tracy or something like that. Because they view it as respect. And then also like when in the West saying yes sir and yes ma'am, like we'll say that, but it's not viewed the same as in the South where it's like a respect thing. Like that's what they view respect as. To us, it's no more respectful than saying like okay or yeah, sure, or I got it, or um, something like that. Um, or just acknowledging. In the West, the communication and the acknowledging, that's the respect. It's not a specific way of saying it. And so when I was at the kids class in the South, I mean, they were like, I mean, they acted like I killed one of their kids or their dog or something. Like, I mean, they acted like they were really offended, and I was like, okay, like what's the problem? Because they would tell me something, and I would just be like, okay, or all right, and they're like, no, you say yes, sir, and so from a Western culture mindset, that's viewed as like the military. And so that's just kind of odd. Another thing that went on is my great grandparents, who are from the West, came down to visit their grandkids who were raised in the South. And they were always saying yes, sir, and yes, ma'am, and using formalities. And my great grandparents were like, kind of like, okay, this is weird. Like, we're your grandparents. Like, we want to, have fun and just interact, and just it's viewed totally different. It's not viewed as a respect thing, it's viewed as a formality. And so that might be hard for someone who's from the South to understand that, because you're just going to view like Western Californian society as disrespectful, when in all reality the acknowledgement um is what's respect, and also the obeying part. So anyway, just even differences here in America, that we have. Uh, I think there's about 16 different kinds of cultures within the 50 states. Um, but that was just kind of a main one that was brought to my attention recently. And so the thing is, so you have both sides. You have the southern side that says you have to use these formalities and this is viewed as respect. And then you have the Western Californian culture, which it's no more respectful than just first name basis or any thing like that. More casual conversation. So you have these two different sides, and which one's right? Well, the answer is neither. Neither is right or wrong. It's just how the specific culture views it. And so the Bible tells us that we need to honor and respect our parents or other people. But here's the thing. What does that look like in our culture? And as we interact with other cultures, we need to recognize and understand where they're coming from. Because, see, me as someone from the West, I view, like, we, not always, but we tend to view people from the South, when they push the, you have to say yes, sir, and yes, ma'am, we view that as like a dictator control freak. And so, and where they're just viewing it as disrespect, we're viewing like, so the person from the South is being like, you didn't say yes, sir, yes, ma'am, like you're disrespectful. And then someone like me who's from the West is going like, okay, like there's nothing wrong with what I did. And then like I'm gonna view that person as like a dictator or a control freak. So both sides have to come to a agreement, and they have to level out the differences, because neither side is right or wrong. It's just the culture. So anyway, um I hope that helps you when you're dealing with people cross culturally with the Word of God, or just in life. Is it's like trying to find and weigh between what's really right and what's really wrong. This is a book that I've been reading recently. It's called Foreign to Familiar, and it's a really good book. It kind of talks about some of that kind of stuff a little bit within our country and across the world. Um, excuse me. So anyway, check it out. Foreign to familiar. And anyway, I hope you have a great day.